Aquarium. And today I'm going to be doing a cooperative training session with both of our sea otters, which means we're going to be working on some teamwork behaviors today. So on the right-hand side is Clara. She has the blonde fur on her face. I'll toss the food for her to bring her closer to the window. Clara is 10 years old, and right now she weighs about 49 pounds. And then over here on your left-hand side is Ruby. Ruby is a 4-year-old sea otter, and Ruby weighs 44 pounds. Go! Good! Hop! Good! Now Ruby and Clara are both southern sea otters. They are normally found off the central coast of California, living in shallow, rocky habitats, similar to what you see here at the aquarium. They do live in kelp forests. So you can see we have this synthetic or artificial kelp with us here in the water. It is actually made out of car wash strip material, but our sea otters do like to use it in the same way. They will wrap up in it at the surface of the water and even bring it up on deck with them to help them dry their fur like a bath towel. Now, sea otter's fur is their main way of staying warm in the Pacific Ocean and in this cold water here at the aquarium. So our water is around 57 degrees year-round, and their sea otter's fur actually functions like trapping a layer of air against their skin, keeping them almost completely waterproof and giving them some extra buoyancy for floating at the surface on their back, like Ruby and Clara are doing right now. Good. Now after a training session like this one, you might see our sea otters rolling around in the water. What they're actually doing is using their front paws to comb out any mats or seafood left behind in their fur, as well as using their mouths to blow air into their fur to create that insulating air layer to keep them warm. When our sea otters are swimming and diving, you can sometimes see air bubbles coming out of their fur, and that is that insulating air layer. Good, please. Good, please. Go ahead, escaping as they swim and dive. Now, in addition to having this fur coat to keep them warm, sea otters also have a very fast metabolism. They can eat anywhere from about 15 to 25% of their body weight each and every day. So right now, both of our sea otters are eating around 8 pounds of seafood a day. All of the seafood that we feed is grade A restaurant quality seafood, which means it is the same quality that you or I would receive when we go to our local restaurants right here in New Orleans. I am feeding 5 different types of seafood, including some clam, shrimp, squid, pollock, which is a white fish. No?
Sit down.
Good.
Sit down.
And even some whole crab, which you will see at the end of this training session.
You gotta sit. Sit down. Thank you.
Now, because we have so much seafood to work with, we do have a lot of fun spreading it out throughout the day into various training and enrichment sessions like you're seeing right now. So, because our sea otters eat so much, we will do anywhere from about 5 to 8 training sessions a day with them, usually coming back about every 1 to 2 hours to feed them. Now, all of our training is based on something called positive reinforcement. That's a really fancy way of saying that when our sea otters do a behavior that we're asking, we're going to use the word good to let them know that they did the right thing, and then they're going to get some type of reward or reinforcement, which oftentimes is some food from their diet. Now, our training does focus on 3 main goals: physical exercise, mental stimulation, and husbandry behaviors. Now, physical exercise includes any of these behaviors. Good, where our sea otters have to swim around the habitat or dive underwater to touch a toy, or even asking our sea otters to move back and forth between our habitats. Good. We do have a gate at the top of this waterfall over here to the left-hand side, so they can move over to our deeper habitat. We also have a gate underneath my feet where I'm standing that goes to our behind-the-scenes habitat as well. Now, mental stimulation includes all of the toys that you see scattered around the habitat. And most importantly, our husbandry behaviors include our veterinary behaviors that allow us to take the best possible care of Ruby and Clara. Now, these behaviors can include things like going onto a scale, so that we can get a voluntary weight of going into a kennel in case we would need to evacuate, like if there was a hurricane. Good. And even a voluntary x-ray and stethoscope behavior. Now right now what you see tossing out to Ruby and Clara are those crabs that I mentioned earlier. That's going to be the end of this training session. And our sea otters are going to show off their very strong and powerful jaws. Like Kathy was mentioning, they do have the same bite force as a black bear. And that helps it to crush through any hard-shelled food items that they eat. They also use a tool use behavior. So after they get done eating those crab legs, which they typically eat shell and all, they will then use that tool use behavior to break those crab shells open against our acrylic windows or our rocky ledges, so they can soften up that hard shell and get to all the meat on the inside. It's definitely a lot of fun to watch, so I definitely encourage you guys to stick around for a few more minutes. And while Ruby and Clara are enjoying their crab, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how they ended up with us here at Audubon. So pretty much any sea otters that you see in a zoo or an aquarium are going to be rescued sea otters that were deemed non-releasable by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. This means that for one reason or another, they're unable to survive on their own out in the ocean, and they do require a permanent home in a zoo or an aquarium. So I'll go ahead and tell you about Clara's rescue story first. It's pretty unique. Clara came to us in November of 2015. Tomorrow is actually her 4-year anniversary with us here at Audubon. Clara wasn't rescued until she was already thought to be about 5 years old. But she was hanging out at a yacht club and being a little bit territorial towards some of the boaters as well as their dogs. This is pretty unusual for a sea otter. They're typically a more skittish animal found in remote areas. So the Monterey Bay Aquarium actually rescued Clara. They decided they were going to relocate her to a more remote area. But as part of that relocation, they performed a health assessment and found out that Clara was pregnant, which might explain why she was being a little bit territorial. Now at this point, Clara was already at the aquarium, so they gave her a private behind-the-scenes area where she did successfully give birth to a female pup. And once Clara's pup was old enough, normally a sea otter mother and pup spend about 6 to 8 months together. Once Clara's pup reached that 8-month age, it was able to be released back out to the ocean to be a part of that natural California sea otter population. Now, unfortunately, Clara had shown a strong association between humans and food, potentially for being fed when she was at that yacht club, which is why it's so important not to feed wild animals, as it can really alter their natural behavior. And with that really strong bite force, it certainly wouldn't have been safe for Clara or any people she may have come into contact with in order to beg for food. Now, Ruby's story is a little bit more common. Ruby was found abandoned when she was only a day old. Like I said, a sea otter pup needs to stay with their mom for about 8 months. And during that time, their mother is going to teach them how to forage for food, how to use that tool use behavior, and how to groom their fur. So Ruby would not have been able to survive at only a day old. Again, she was rescued by Monterey Bay Aquarium, and when she was old enough, she was paired with an adult female otter at the aquarium to act as a surrogate mother and hopefully teach her those important survival skills. Now, when Ruby was old enough, the aquarium made 4 attempts to release her back out to the ocean, but unfortunately, none of these attempts were successful. As part of the release process, they do tag the rear flippers of the sea otters with an identifying number so that they can keep track of their success. And every time they went out to check on Ruby, they could tell she had lost a lot of weight, indicating she didn't quite learn how to find enough food to eat out there in the ocean on her own. So Ruby has been here with us since March of 2017. Now, female sea otters are pretty social, and as you can see, Clara and Ruby became pretty fast friends. We are very happy to have both of them here with us at Audubon to teach you a little bit more about the endangered southern sea otter and some of the ways you can help them no matter where in the country you might be from. Now, some of the biggest threats that sea otters face are man-made causes. Things like pollution, plastics in the ocean, and not being able to find enough food due to overfishing. So do I have any seafood lovers out there? I know I like to eat seafood, so if you do, you seafood. And what that means is there's just enough seafood out there to go around, and it's not an item that is being overfished. So if you're local, Audubon puts out an app for your phone called Audubon Gulf Fisheries, and you can take that app with you, and it'll let you know local restaurants right here in the corner that choose to serve sustainably sourced seafood. Another really easy way to help out sea otters is to reduce your plastic consumption. Try to take reusable grocery bags, water bottles, and even straws, and keep those items out of our oceans and waterways. All of those plastics break down into tiny pieces called microplastics that actually get filtered by the food that sea otters eat, and then they're consuming that plastic in their daily diet. Now, Ruby and Clara are finishing up those crab pots, but I have one more treat for them, and it is another form of enrichment or mental stimulation. So I have a couple of sea otter popsicles, and we have some football-themed treats today. Go Saints! So frozen inside of here, with a little bit of food coloring, we have some more food, like some mussels and crab legs, and even a new toy that our sea otters haven't seen in a while. And just like you saw with those crab claws, they're going to use that tool use behavior to break open this ice and get to all the treats that are frozen on the inside. It's definitely a lot of fun to see. Ruby is very patiently waiting for hers over here, and Clara looks like she's coming over for hers as well. Now, if you guys do have any additional questions about our sea otters, Kathy and Hazel are still out front. They'd be more than happy to answer them. We also have an education cart over on the right-hand side with a sea otter pelt if you'd like to feel just how soft the densest fur on the planet truly is. Be sure to stop by and check that out. I want to thank you all so much for coming out today. I hope you learned a little bit more about sea otters and some of the ways you can protect them.